Now, we're going to continue from where we left off when I saw you guys last week. And what we're going to be doing today is, we're going to be talking about really the reasoning or the purposes behind these various punishments. Now, when I saw you guys last week, we talked about different levels, what seems to be appropriate, but you have to kind of keep in mind, there's always Eighth Amendment protections. There's always protection from cruel and unusual punishment. Now, when the founders wrote that, they were basically thinking in their minds about how the system they grew up in was a system where the king was judge, jury, and executioner. He could make the punishment whatever he wanted. And the English were very good at dishing out some very harsh punishments. So what the founders probably meant was, you can't do these horrible, torturous things. The way we kind of interpret Eighth Amendment now is the punishment appropriate for the crime? Now, you kind of have to just keep that in the back of your mind, because I just gave you guys a bunch of scenarios. Some of which you said should be harsher punishments, some maybe not so much, but we got to kind of think big picture. So today what we're going to do is we're going to look at purposes. Why we even have those various levels of punishment. First one we're going to talk about is going to be retribution. Now, retribution is basically saying that instead of individuals taking revenge for what they deem to be a wrong against them, we take that power away from an individual and we hand it off to society, where we say, you don't get to take revenge. We have a system in place that gives the defendant very much the benefit of the doubt. They're innocent until proven guilty. So it's not the individual that gets to get their revenge. It's society that puts the punishment on this behavior. Now, I use this picture here because maybe you remember this, maybe not. This was a handful of years ago, probably about 4 or 5 years ago. This person that you see right in here, I know it's kind of hard to see him right there. He was a former athletic trainer at Michigan State University. Nasser was his last name. He was charged with multiple, and this spanned for years, of basically like sexual assault against the Michigan State athletes. And I think if I remember right too, he was on like the Olympic team as well. He was an athletic trainer for the Olympians. And after years of this, I think it was like 20 years or something like that, he finally gets charged with this. So he's charged with something like 100+ counts of sexual assault, I think is what they got him for. And this right here is the father of one of these athletes that he abused. During the trial, they were going through the facts of this and bringing up what he did, and the father just lost it. And he just charges at Nasser here, and you can see there's several people kind of holding him back. This right here is a great example of why our system of punishment is designed to have retribution. It's taken out of his hands and put in our justice system's hands. Now, this can reduce kind of this problem where if you have just everyone taking revenge, you have chaos. Our system is set up to take that out of the individual's hands, give it to society. Now, number 2, we're going to talk about deterrence. Like I was saying, our discussion on the death penalty real fast here sets me up almost perfectly. Because deterrence suggests that if you have a system in place where a punishment is dealt out to deter future people from doing that, to say maybe this punishment is so bad, I'm not even going to attempt to do it. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples. One is the death penalty. That's as bad as it gets. The United States has the death penalty, but again, we've talked about how it's a state issue. A lot of places around the world do not. So there was a particular individual by the name of Pablo Escobar. Have you heard of him?
Yes.
Okay. He was a massive drug kingpin back in the 1980s, and I think that even into the 1990s. He was basically responsible for about like 80% of the cocaine that came to America was from him. Massive drug lord. He had always said, I will serve my time in Colombia. I will stay here, but I'm not going to the United States because they can execute me. So he said on multiple occasions, kind of a weird thing, he built himself a prison in Colombia. And he gave himself a sentence. So he stayed in his prison in Colombia, which was nicer than anyone's house in 99.9% of the world. However, finally he gets extradited to the United States and he says, I'm not going to do that because they have the death penalty there. He was terrified of it. He still did the crimes, but he was terrified of the death penalty. Now, we have, again, systems in place where we have minimums and maximum sentences. The idea is, hopefully, we set these punishments at such a level that people would never do it to begin with. Now, that little story about Pablo Escobar, again, kind of sets me up because back in the 1980s, we start setting penalties, and these are minimums, for drug offenses at like 10 years in prison. Having the smallest amount of cocaine in the 1980s, you got 10 years in prison. Did it stop people from doing it? No, but maybe it stopped some people because that's such a harsh sentence. Now again, Eighth Amendment protections. Is 10 years in prison cruel and unusual for having a tiny amount of an illegal drug? Court said, no, it's not. Court said that's perfectly acceptable. Now again, it's very debatable. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Court said, no, that's acceptable. Now, third one is incapacitation. Now, you kind of have to think of this really in like the most basic sense of a prison. Incapacitation just says that as long as this person's in jail, they're no longer a threat to our society. We are quite literally picking them up and removing them from the community. And we are isolating them in a prison. No longer will they be a threat as long as they're isolated. Now, this kind of comes back to what we've talked about today, and when I saw you last week, about the different levels of punishment. If you're in a maximum or even minimum security prison, you're removed from society. If you're out on work release or probation or a suspended sentence, the court has deemed that what you've done is not bad enough to remove you from society. This is why that is an option. Yes, sir.
So, do prisoners get the right to vote, or is that taken away from them the thing that?
Good question. It depends on the states. Some states say felons cannot vote. Some say that you cannot vote while you're in prison. Some say that you have the full voting rights no matter where you are. So it spans the whole spectrum there. Yes, sir.
If you're like not a felon, like you have less than a year in jail, what about then? Do you still not get the right to vote while you're in prison?
I believe that depends on the state as well. I think if you're not a felon though, I believe you get the right to vote. I have to check because it's a state issue, but I'd say overwhelmingly that yes, you get the right to vote if you're not a felon. Sure. Last one we're going to talk about is going to be potentially the cornerstone of our justice system, of our system of punishments, is rehabilitation. The idea that yes, we're going to punish someone, yes, we're going to send them to prison, but the idea is we want to fix them. We want to change them. We want to give them an opportunity to have a better life once their sentence is over. Now, I always kind of get the question, well, what about a life sentence? Do you have to worry about fixing them? That's a very fair question because I guess not. But at the same time, this is kind of a value of a civilized society. We want these people to do their time, to pay their debt to society, but then come out in a better position. So we have multiple programs how people can better their lives while they're in prison. One of which is you can go to school while you're in prison. As you guys just learned. Now here's the thing. Going to school while you're in prison means you can get a bachelor's degree, you can get a master's degree, you can get a law degree while you're in prison. I see some of you, the wheels are turning.
For free.
Oh, nothing's for free. The taxpayers pay for that. So you can have someone in jail getting their master's degree, getting their doctorate, going to college, whatever it is, the taxpayers pay for it. I had someone last year, he was a senior, he's like, so are you telling me it's a better idea to go to jail than go to college? I'm like, no, I'm not saying that. However, in this instance, the taxpayers pay for that. Now, it is controversial. I could see the issue with it, but again, we want these people to better themselves. Yes, it is.
Is it just college or is it creative vocational school?
They can do that too. Even like GEDs, high school diplomas as well. Now, here's the deal. I do just want to remind you real fast. When's your exam? Thursday for your exam. Now, keep in mind, on Thursday, you guys have to all multiple choice. On Friday, we're going to watch OJ. God bless America. Have a good day. I will see you guys tomorrow. Real fast, Nick, will you come chat with me? Owen and Ella, will you come chat with me as well?
There's 2 tables for the 4 of us.
So here's the thing. My mistake. Have a good day, guys. I want to give you guys this because I had to sort of tweak this a little bit. This is what you guys are going to do to make up just for the time that you missed for, certainly for your mock trial. I guess I made a mistake in